Well, good morning. How are you doing? It's good to see you. It's very good to see you, in fact. And here we are. Here we are on Monday. Let's see if I can sort this out. 'Cause, I'd like to be a bit more in the frame. Can maybe faff on with that later, I suppose. But let's see if I can do that because I've got this new fancy camera. Look at that. You can see how grey my hair is, and that I haven't done anything. I haven't done anything with it today. There you go. Let's save those changes, and then say hello, like properly. Good morning. It's Monday, and it's Monday the 26th of September. So it's really good to be here with you. I had a great weekend. Had a great weekend. A proper restful weekend. I hope you have too, to some extent or other. Me and my good lady wife Christine, we went to Holy Island, and which is just in case we're global this morning, it's a little island just off the Northumberland coast in the northeast of England, and it's got a spiritual heritage with Bede, I think, and Cuthbert. Somebody else will know more about this than I do. Certainly, I'm sure it's the statue of Cuthbert that's in the Abbey. If I'm wrong there, I apologise. So we went there, and the nice thing, or the scary thing sometimes, about Holy Island is there's a causeway that you have to cross. I don't know how long it is, maybe about a quarter of a mile, maybe something like that. And obviously you have to cross it when the tide's out. And we deliberately set out to go up when the tide was going to come in, and we were going to be trapped on the island. Well, albeit just for about 6 hours. But it was a great kind of. We both talked about this, and we both said kind of what a peace it brought, in a sense, because we were there for 6 hours. There was nothing we could do. There was absolutely nothing we could do. We couldn't decide we'd had enough of Holy Island and disappear off the island and go back onto the mainland and go and do something else. We couldn't do that because we were cut off. And while there was still lots to do, we went for a lovely big walk, about a 5 mile walk we did. And we did that. And we also had cake and some lunch and wandered about and those kind of things. It's famous for its mead, which is an alcoholic beverage that the monks originally brewed on the island. So that's what it's famous for. So we went to Holy Island. Anyway, that was good. And linking seamlessly to today, we planned that, because had we not planned it, good morning, Peter Wright, had we not planned it, talking about monks and robes and things, had we not planned it, the problem with not planning it would have been it might not have gone very well. So we had to kind of predict what we were going to do. We certainly had to predict the time that we were going to arrive at the causeway. And then we had to predict what we would do, think about that, because we had 6 hours to fill. It's not a big island. There's not a huge amount to do. And it's a time of year where a lot of stuff's closed. And then we had to kind of predict, well, the tide going out was predicted for us, but then we had to predict being back at the car. Do it anyway. So we had to plan it. And it's the same when we go on a car journey. We sometimes embark on things in life. The car journey is the metaphor here. We sometimes embark on things in life without a plan. And then we wonder why those things go wrong, why they don't kind of pan out the way we thought they would. So I was kind of pondering this. I kind of ponder what to say in these things, periodically in between them. And I thought it's about time we did something structured. It's about time that rather than just thinking, I'll talk about that, it's about time we did something structured. And I've got this idea for a book, which is to think about all of this self-care and all this productivity workflow kind of stuff, and to think about it from the perspective of give me a year. And the reason it's give me a year is because when it comes to establishing habits, when it comes to getting into the routine of things, when it comes to kind of seeing some sort of movement forward as well, because I think sometimes as people, we need to see some forward movement. We need to look back and see that something's happened, or I think we become a bit disillusioned. So I thought, well, give me a year is the concept of this book that I've got in my head. So I thought, I'm just going to try it out, and I'm going to take you through the steps. So the Give Me a Year book would start with bottoming out your 10-year plan. Now, I talk about this when I do some sessions in uni and sometimes online, and people freak out. Go, how on earth can I think ahead 10 years? Well, that's fair enough. I'm going to get you eventually to come up with a 1 year plan. That's probably the next one. But if you don't know where you're going, if you don't know where you're heading for 10 years' time, or 5, or 3 is probably a minimum, I'd suggest, because we're going to plan a year, aren't we? We're going to plan a year here. And if you come any closer than 3 years, well, you might as well plan 2 years. Do you know what I mean? So it has to be different to the 1 year plan. So I would go 10-year plan, or 5, or maybe 3. But we have to have a 10-year plan, because what we then have to do is break it down and think about, how do we arrive at that decision? Now, I established my last 10-year plan when I was 50. So my 10-year plan takes me to 60. And it includes things. Now, this is the absolute key thing. It has to include value-driven things, not objectively measurable things, particularly, because we're on a mission here. We're on a mission, and we're heading for some big thing, a bit nebulous maybe. So mine was to be financially kind of independent of big organizations. I've worked for big organizations all my life, and they've generated the income that I need in order to live the life I live and buy me books and pay the mortgage and that kind of thing. So my 10-year plan was to be financially independent of having to work for those sort of organizations, so that I could work flexibly. That was another one. I didn't define what work was going to be. I didn't define what it was going to look like. I wanted to work flexibly. And then there were other things in there, without going into too much of that. There were other things in there. And here I am, 5 years in, and mortgage free, which is not unusual for people my age. My wife's 60 and this year, and it's not unusual for people our age to be mortgage free sometimes. But we moved house over the summer, as you might remember from an early one, and that was a direct consequence of my 10-year plan. A direct consequence, because that's a big step. That's a massive step. We could have continued to live in the house we were in, but we would have still had a mortgage when I hit 60. So that wouldn't have worked. That wouldn't work for the 10-year plan. Obviously, the wife had to come on board with the 10-year plan as well, but for that bit to work anyway. So, because the thing then with the 10-year plan, or 5 or 3 or whatever you're going to go with, is what you then have to do is check each decision you make. I mean, I don't mean like whether you have toast for breakfast or whatever, but the decisions that you're going to make, you then check each decision against the plan and ask yourself, does this thing that I'm about to do fit with the big plan, or is it in contrast to the big plan? Now, a little word of warning here: sometimes we have to replan the plan, so I get that. But if you've made the plan about big ideas, value-driven internal ideas, then the plan usually stays quite intact. So the idea is that then, as you work towards more short-term goals, you think, does this short-term goal fit with the plan? Because there is a tyranny in small decisions, okay? And the problem with those small decisions is those small decisions, in the same way when we talk about habits, we talk about kind of developing that 1%. It's the same with small decisions. They accumulate into bigger decisions. I think about my little pocket money account I have, where I buy books and I buy this and I buy that and I buy the other. I subscribe to some websites where they offer you interesting, or they appear interesting at the time, interesting ebooks for like £1 and all that kind of thing. And I think, oh, that's a good one, and that's a good one. Before I know it, I look at the end of the week, I've maybe spent £7 on these things. You know what I mean? Because they send you emails every day. So maybe that doesn't fit with my bigger decision. Maybe I have to think about how I spend my money. And I did. I started investing in a savings account a good while back. Because the problem with the tyranny of those small decisions, if we use those small purchases, is they sneak up on you, little buggers. They sneak up on you, and before you know where you're at, you're thinking, well, now I've just bought lots of small things. Now I'm surrounded by a whole load of rubbish. Now I'm surrounded by a whole load of stuff that doesn't fit with my long-term goal. And now I haven't managed to put any money away that fits with my long-term goal. I'm thinking here about my long-term goal. Yours will be different, obviously. So the tyranny of these small decisions, small purchases, in my example, sneak up on you. And once that genie is out of the bottle, once you've let that go, once you've let it go in terms of like you've lost the momentum in that first 6 months of that first year, suddenly that 10-year plan becomes a tenth harder to achieve. And then if you're not working towards the 10-year plan in year 2, then it's 2/10, 1/5 harder to achieve. And on it goes till suddenly you end up kind of halfway into your 10-year plan and you think, well, I'm still nowhere near that. I'm still nowhere near that. What went wrong there? What went wrong there was the tyranny of small decisions. It was the tyranny of small decisions where you were making small, looked fairly inconsequential steps, you know, that meant that you didn't hit the target you were after. These little things accumulate and get in the way. So that's step one. Step one in this journey of getting our stuff in order, of figuring out where we're going, starts with figuring out where we want to be at some point in the quite distant future. Yeah. And if we're lucky enough to get there, then that's great. I'll give you just one more example before I go. When I stop being required to work for a big organization, I can work for myself. I can become more agile and more flexible with my work, and I want to travel. Some of the traveling I want to do is not to go and, I don't know, sit on a beach in Spain or Turkey or wherever. That's not the sort of traveling I want to do. I want to do traveling that will require some physicality to do the traveling. So I'm making decisions right now about my health and my fitness and my nutrition that will help me in the future. And that keeps motivating me. I mean, you know, I fall off the wagon from time to time and it's peaks and troughs, but that keeps me motivated. So step one in this give me a year, step one is come up with your 10-year plan. Figure out your 10-year plan. Figure out what your big ambitions are for the next 10 years. If that's a bit of a stretch for you, 5 years or 3 years. Some of this depends sometimes on things like if you've got kids or, you know, or you're having to do a particular thing, then maybe you have to wait for those things to happen to move on to other steps. So 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, whatever works for you, but you need to have a long-term plan, whatever that is, because we're going to move on to thinking about what we do this year to move us towards that 10-year plan. So have good days. I'm off to do some stuff now. My first job, which actually I've done already because I was having a quick look at my diary before I did this. My first job was to take all of the things that I need to do today and look at them and think, what do I not want to do? What I absolutely not want to do. And I stuck them right at the start of the day. So we know what that is. I'm going to go and eat my frogs now. If you've not heard that one before, give that a Google or whatever, or have a look on the website, selfcareshorts.com. And I'm sure there's something about frogs on there. I'm sure I've written about that. If I haven't, I might. I may do that later today if I get time. So I'm going to go and eat my frogs. I'm going to make a cup of tea, eat my frogs, and then get right back at you on Wednesday, hopefully, when we'll talk about the next step in this Give Me a Year. Take care.